Welcome to Carolina Varsity's 2012 look at the NCHSAA playoffs. Now we're going to take a look at the 3AA playoffs. I'm Dale Ross. This is Matt Morrow. We're going to take a look at the Northern Guilford Charlotte Catholic game, and this is Northern Guilford's third time back into the championship game. They beat Crest the last two seasons, and as I mentioned off camera, Crest beat Catholic the previous week to make it to the championship game. This is going to be a game of Logan versus Hood.
It won't take very long.
It's going to be a big run game, exactly. TJ Logan is 24-34 is his yards on the season, and 36 TDs, and of course Hood is at 28-68 and 45 TDs on the season.
Amazing.
It's amazing, and this is, I think this is, to be honest with you, I think this is the kind of team that can do Catholic the most damage, and that's a good run team, because we've seen here in Charlotte, we saw two primarily heavy run teams. West Mac and Olympic had big rushing nights against Catholic, and I've got to believe that Northern Guilford has a better defense than both of those teams put together. That being that, I think that they can probably slow down Catholic a little more than Olympic and West Mac could, and I think Northern Guilford's every bit as good a running team, maybe better than those teams. So that I could see both of these running backs having big nights. We might see two backs with 300 yards each. That's not going to surprise me at all. And we're going to see two backs that each are probably going to have 3-4 touchdowns each. Catholic does have a few other backs, as does Northern Guilford, that they can go to. And we will see, Catholic runs, they run out of a wing T. And, Northern Guilford calls it a spread I, but obviously when you have I in the formation, you got tailbacks you got to worry about. And Logan is one of those tailbacks. Hood's a bruising back. He's kind of an in-betweener fullback and a tailback, but he's more like a fullback in his in his attack of the defense. Whereas here we're going to see a real good tailback as well. So I think this Max Press is predicting a 44-40 Charlotte Catholic win, and I'm leaning to Northern Guilford, and I think it's going to be a fairly high scoring game. I could see someone potentially getting into the 40s, but I think that this is probably Northern Guilford's game by at least one score.
Yeah, I would agree with you in terms of who's going to win the game. But if you like old school football, this is the game you need to go to. Because you got the wing T versus the I. And I'm going to tell you don't see that a lot anymore. A lot of teams going to the spread and trying to throw it around and run the zone read. You ain't going to see that here. TJ Logan, a lot of people would say he's the better back compared to Hood because he has the ability to run away from you. Hood can do that as well, but Logan's got the speed the D1 guys love.
He's got more speed, yes.
Yeah. Northern Guilford's closest game was against Western Alamance. It's a 28-14 game. Western Alamance has traditionally been a passing type of school. That being said, otherwise Northern Guilford's pretty much run through everybody on the schedule. Catholic had a tough game with Marvin Ridge in the first round, but after that it's kind of picked it up and it's gotten better as the playoffs have gone along.
Well, I'm going to let you keep talking, but I wanted to ask you about that because as I circled things on Catholic's, schedule, things that stood out. Of course, it was the Country Day loss, but one was the Marvin Ridge. And, my thought is, I'm not going to say that Catholic wasn't focused, but, Marvin Ridge is a good ball team, and I think it's proof that you got to come to play against everybody. And if you don't come to play against good teams, and I don't know if your feeling on that is the same, but I think they kind of refocus themselves after that.
Oh, definitely, because we thought the Weddington game after that was going to be an even tougher game.
Right.
Because Weddington has a great defense, but they came out and they just, ran through Weddington. So I think that was a wake-up call to Catholic. And ever since then, they have been dominating, especially last week on the road at Statesville. That game wasn't even close. It was over by halftime. But that being said, Logan, when Northern Guilford does throw the ball, he's also the team's leading receiver, which would tell me they're probably throwing some screen passes or, some dump-offs in the flat. And we all know when you get athletes in space against Catholic, it gives them trouble as well as the run game. So look for TJ Logan to do that. If they do, slow him down in early downs, maybe the screen pass is going to come on third down and get him out there and see what he can do in space. Northern Guilford averages 300 yards on the ground. Catholic's numbers are roughly, around the same. The difference, I think, like you mentioned, Dale, Catholic has a couple more threats on the ground that can hurt you in the wing tee. And that's gonna, I think those guys are gonna be a difference on whether this game is a close game or it's a Northern Guilford blowout, because those guys have to come to play as well. Northern Guilford doesn't throw the ball much. They've only thrown for 700 yards in 13 games. So if they do throw it, it's gonna go to Logan. But like we said, Catholic has had trouble stopping the run against teams that are not as good as Northern Guilford. So that's going to lend us to say Northern Guilford, I think, by 14. Catholic, if they get behind, they're going to have to throw the ball. You may see them throw the ball a little more early on off of play action, and those tight ends will run either down the seam or run the flag routes. And I'm sure that's something Northern Guilford will probably be well versed in, and being responsible and not coming up hard on run action.
Right.
So, if Catholic is going to pull this out, the defense has got to find a way to stop the run. But this kid Logan has run on everyone this year, so I don't see that happening.
Well, now you mentioned about the Catholic passing, and not to be contradictory, but one of the things Catholic in the past has been real heavy with their tight end in the same. But in the two games that I saw them this year, it was more their wingbacks that were in play on the pass, and they weren't throwing. I don't know why. I'm assuming that means they don't have the confidence, or they don't have the kid at tight end that can hurt them. But then again, the play's there, and every time I've seen them run those tight end plays, they always hit big. Yeah, wide open. They always hit big because you don't expect it. So that is one thing that I expect to see Catholic. I saw a halfback pass in the Olympic game out of Catholic. A halfback pass. Where do you see? How often does Odo trick plays?
They run it maybe once every 5 years.
Exactly. So, don't think that just because of what you may have seen on film is what they're going to do. You can do a lot out of that wing tee. But I was texting with Pete Gilchrist Friday night, asking him what he thought about Hood, and he's like, he's good, but the other backs are hurting him. So, it was the other backs that was hurting Statesville. And Hood still, I forget how many yards he had, but he had over 200 yards, didn't he? Yeah. So he still had a big night, but the other backs were having a big night. So it's going to be, like you say, if you like old-fashioned football, you're going to see, one of the things we don't see much anymore, swing passes. Everything seems to be so vertical, but running out of the eye, you're probably going to see a swing pass to the tailback. Hopefully people know what that is. If you don't, you'll probably learn. So I think it could be a good ball game. We're both in the boat that we think Northern Guilford's getting another state championship. This is not Catholic's first time at the big dance, and they have a few rings themselves. So could be a very, very good ball game.
Just don't get too comfortable, because it'll be over in about an hour.
Exactly. This game should run quickly.